In a small kitchen outside Intercourse, Pennsylvania, a 63-year-old woman starts every morning the same way she has for 40 years. She does not reach for a supplement bottle. She does not measure a powder. She spends nothing. And the skin on her face, examined by a visiting nurse practitioner in 2019 as part of a regional health documentation project, was estimated by that practitioner to be 15 years younger than her chronological age. 15 years. Not a filter, not a procedure, a morning drink. Before you dismiss that as folklore, stay with me, because what this woman knows is not a secret in the mystical sense. It is a secret in the most infuriating sense. It was known, it was common, and then something happened that made it disappear from mainstream conversation precisely when the industry found a way to sell you a replacement. The traditional practices I'm going to describe today are drawn from Old Order Amish communities in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and Holmes County, Ohio communities where women have had no access to department store skincare, no dermatologist on speed dial, and no budget for collagen supplements. And where repeatedly researchers and journalists who visit these communities come back talking about the same thing: the skin, the resilience of it, the texture, the absence of the particular kind of aging that has become so normalized among American women that we think it's inevitable. It is not inevitable. That is what this channel exists to say. But first, let us talk about what you were sold instead. In 1938, the United States passed the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. That law gave the FDA authority over drugs and food, but cosmetics were carved out. Cosmetics required no pre-market safety testing, no approval before a product hit your bathroom shelf. The industry was left essentially to regulate itself. And for 84 years, that framework was not substantially updated. Not in the 60s when synthetic chemistry exploded. Not in the 70s when new penetration-enhancing compounds were developed. Not in the 80s when the anti-aging market became a multi-billion-dollar category. In 1976, an industry body called the Cosmetic Ingredient Review Panel was established to assess ingredient safety. It sounds protective. It was funded entirely by the Personal Care Products Council, the beauty industry's own trade association. The panel has reviewed thousands of ingredients. It has no enforcement power. It can recommend, it can suggest, it cannot compel a single company to remove a single ingredient from a single product. And the companies knew that when they funded it. Here is the number that changes everything. The global collagen supplement market was valued at approximately $3.7 billion in 2021. That market is projected to grow past $6 billion by the end of this decade. It is one of the fastest growing segments in the entire beauty and wellness industry. Collagen pills, collagen powders, collagen gummies, every format, every price point, every influencer. And here is what the research actually says, quietly, in the fine print that no supplement marketing budget will ever amplify. The collagen molecule in most oral supplement forms is too large to be absorbed intact. Your digestive system breaks it down into amino acids, just like it does with any other protein you eat. Whether your body uses those amino acids to rebuild collagen in your skin specifically rather than in your tendons, your cartilage, your gut lining, all of which compete for the same raw materials, is not something you control. Some hydrolyzed collagen studies do show modest improvements in skin elasticity, modest, at doses that cost significantly more than most products on the shelf. And consistently, the studies with the strongest results are funded by the companies selling the products. The Amish women of Lancaster County never read those studies. They did not need to. They were doing something older, cheaper, and based on what observers keep documenting, more effective. The morning drink is not dramatic. That is the first thing to understand. It does not taste like a miracle. It does not look like a wellness ritual. It is warm water with raw apple cider vinegar, the kind with the mother, meaning the unfiltered culture of beneficial bacteria and enzymes, and raw honey, ideally local. In some households, a pinch of ginger, nothing else. Let me be specific about amounts, because vague wellness advice is its own form of dishonesty. Typically, 1 to 2 tablespoons of raw apple cider vinegar in 8 ounces of warm water. Not hot, because heat can degrade some of the beneficial compounds in the honey and vinegar with 1 teaspoon of raw honey. Drunk first thing in the morning before food. Why does this matter for skin? The connection is not magic. It is pH, gut lining, and the relationship between your digestive system and systemic inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now one of the most researched accelerants of visible skin aging. It contributes to collagen breakdown, impairs the skin barrier, and accelerates the cellular processes that produce what most women recognize as premature lines, dullness, and uneven texture. And the gut, increasingly, is understood to be one of the primary regulatory sites for that inflammation. Raw apple cider vinegar, specifically the kind with the mother, contains acetic acid enzymes and a form of prebiotic fiber called pectin. These compounds interact with the gut microbiome in ways that have been associated with reduced inflammatory markers in several small but consistent studies. Raw honey, particularly local honey, contains trace minerals, propolis compounds, and natural enzymes that appear to have their own anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Together, taken consistently and on an empty stomach, this combination does something simple. It creates a morning gut environment that is less hostile, less inflamed, and more capable of absorbing the nutrients that your skin actually needs from the food you eat the rest of the day. You cannot supplement your way past a chronically inflamed gut. That is the point the supplement industry has no financial incentive to make. A woman I spoke with, 61 years old, a former school teacher from a community just outside Millersburg, Ohio, mother of 6, who has been drinking this combination every morning for over 30 years, told me something I have not been able to stop thinking about. She said, "We were never told this was for our skin. We were told it was for our stomach. The skin followed." She spends less than $8 a month on this. A bottle of raw apple cider vinegar with the mother costs between $5 and $7 and lasts most of a month. A jar of local raw honey purchased seasonally averages out to roughly $1 or $2 a week. That is not a typo. That is the full monthly cost. Now, before this starts to sound like a story with no shadows, I want to be direct with you about something. This approach is not for everyone, and I would rather lose your trust than pretend otherwise. If you have active acid reflux or diagnosed gastroparesis, introducing vinegar on an empty stomach may worsen your symptoms, not improve them. If you are taking medications that interact with potassium or blood sugar regulation, certain diuretics, insulin, or diabetes medications, raw apple cider vinegar can have clinically significant interactions that you need to discuss with your doctor before experimenting. And perhaps most importantly, if your visible skin concerns involve significant sun damage accumulated over decades, this drink will help your skin from the inside forward. It does not reverse deep photoaging that already exists. Nothing you drink does that quickly, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. What this does is slow the future. That distinction matters enormously if you are setting realistic expectations. This practice did not begin with the Amish. That is something worth understanding clearly, because it reframes the entire story. The Amish preserved it. They did not invent it. Fermented vinegar as a daily health tonic appears in Roman records. Dating back over 2,000 years, Roman soldiers carried a vinegar water drink called pasca as a daily ration. In Ayurvedic medicine, fermented preparations made from fruit and plant sources have been prescribed for digestive health and skin clarity for centuries. In Japanese traditional medicine, rice vinegar taken before meals has been a documented folk health practice for generations. In ancient Egypt, honey was used medicinally with such consistency that jars of it were preserved in tombs. They understood, empirically, that it did not corrupt. Different continents, different centuries, no communication with each other, and the same functional discovery. Fermentation and honey together do something for the body that nothing else quite replicates. The Amish did not arrive at this wisdom. They simply never let the industry convince them to abandon it. That is a different kind of knowledge. It is not innovation, it is continuity. And in a culture that has been selling us novelty as a substitute for efficacy, continuity turns out to be the rarest thing available. There is one practical note that matters if you are going to try this, and the Amish women who use this drink have always known it. Even if they could not explain the chemistry, do not brush your teeth immediately after. The acetic acid in vinegar can temporarily soften tooth enamel, and brushing against softened enamel over time contributes to erosion. Wait at least 30 minutes or brush before you drink. This is not a minor cosmetic footnote. It is the kind of detail that makes the difference between a practice that serves you and one that quietly creates a different problem. There is also the matter of consistency. This is not a 2-week experiment with photographic results. The women who show the kind of skin resilience that observers keep documenting in these communities have been doing this for years. The mechanism reducing systemic inflammation through gut support, improving nutrient absorption, stabilizing blood sugar responses in the morning operates on the timescale of months, not days. If you come to this expecting the same dopamine loop as an expensive serum, you will leave before you see anything. That is what the industry counts on. Your impatience is their business model. The morning routine in these communities also involves something that does not cost anything, and that modern dermatology, after decades of dismissing it, now largely validates: cold water on the face at waking. Not a product, water. The thermal contrast between sleep warmth and cold water stimulates circulation in the superficial dermal layers, reduces morning puffiness by encouraging lymphatic drainage, and temporarily tightens the skin surface through a mild vasoconstrictive response. Amish women have done this over a basin every morning for generations, not because they read a study, but because they felt the difference. The study came later, the practice came first. The world you are standing in right now, the one full of collagen gummies and peptide serums and hyaluronic acid complexes, was built on the deliberate burial of this kind of knowledge. Not through conspiracy, exactly. Through economics. A morning drink that costs $8 a month cannot fund a marketing campaign. A supplement that costs $40 a month can, and the $40 product gets the research funding, the influencer partnerships, the sponsored content, and eventually the cultural authority that makes your grandmother's practice sound quaint and unscientific. The quaint practice produces 15-year skin differentials that stop nurse practitioners mid-examination. Think about that for a moment. And think about how many things you have been told were old-fashioned that turned out to be correct, and how many things you were told were breakthroughs that turned out to be empty. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from? And do you remember someone in your family, a grandmother, an aunt, an older neighbor who had remarkable skin without ever touching a department store product? What did she drink in the morning? And I want to ask you something more personal. Is there something she did that you stopped doing because it seemed too simple? Because if you are the kind of woman who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit margin, you already know what to do. The next video on this channel is going to be harder to watch than this one, because it is not about something that was merely forgotten. It is about something that was actively removed from product labels starting in 1966, one specific ingredient that Amish communities never stopped using topically and that the fragrance industry lobbied to reclassify as a cosmetic component specifically to avoid disclosure requirements. There's a document, there's a date, there's a dollar amount attached to the lobbying effort, and there is a reason your grandmother's hand cream worked better than yours